Hey, 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 what's up, Facebook? Welcome again to Tweed Live. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to log in and get comfortable and join us for another great show. So, when you guys come in, then I'll start chatting. I'll wait for you guys to come on live, just so I know who is here. I hope everybody had a great day today. And I hope you guys are enjoying the new format, which I think is a little bit easier, and also the audio and video is a lot easier. I know we were having a lot of issues, a lot of technical issues, because sometimes the weather is not our friend, sometimes connections are not our friends. Wi-Fi has a line of its own. So here's our new format, and we hope you guys are enjoying it. Yesterday was our first show using StreamYard, so that was pretty cool. We had on Ali and Arlene Brathwaite, filmmakers, writers, and they are truly a power couple. We mentioned that yesterday. And we had them on. They were quite lovely. So today we have on another special guest. And I'm not going to say too much about him before we bring him on. But yes, we are really excited. Hey, Daniel. Daniel said he's going to watch the replay with his platform. Daniel, yes, we appreciate it. And I'm pretty sure you knew we were going to give you a shout out. So we appreciate the help and all that good stuff and the feedback from all the other previous live videos. So give us a thumbs up when you guys come in. And then we hope you had a great day. And it is September 1st already. It's like we wanted the summer to get here. The summer came here, and then it flew by, and it's already September. School is going to be starting soon. Oh, hi.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me.
Okay.
My handsome co-host here. So yeah, I looked at the calendar today, and I couldn't believe that it was already September 1st.
Oh man, I gotta take a minute. September 1st.
Yes, that's very important.
Yes, there's September 2nd.
Mhm.
So, I just came in from work.
Yeah.
All the kids were running late, but I didn't have to wait for it. But I had to print some stuff, but I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, honey.
I'm glad you're home.
I'm wearing my special shirt today.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Marvel, Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Most of you already know why this one I'm wearing this.
Mhm.
And he's someone that's going to be missed.
Very much so.
Just not just because of his movies, but because of the way that he was outside of the movie. A lot of people are now beginning to realize that. You know, um, it's a sad day. I felt like when Bruce Lee passed. Um, I think someone asked me one time, why would you feel certain things about somebody that you really know?
Yeah. Well, I asked you the same question the other night
Yeah.
because that's how I was.
Yeah, you asked me that question, but the thing is that a lot of people feel that way because of the contribution that people have made. Like if you find out that somebody's a humanitarian,
Yeah.
that's a really good person, then what happens is you feel for them, like it's too early.
Mhm.
They have so much more to do. And of course the talent was good too,
Yes.
but just the person that he was outside
Mhm.
of that.
And we were I mean, and Layla got us started with all
In the Marvels.
Marvel films, and she was, oh my gosh.
But at least he left a legacy behind that we could enjoy, you know.
Daniel. Daniel, one day we're gonna meet you, and we're just gonna give you a big hug.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, his first comment was, I'll watch the replay with your new platform. You can handle it tonight. So he comes back in and he leaves another comment. He said, you should have had this platform long ago. So clear.
Oh, okay. Well,
Well,
thank you.
Daniel, you should have been on your job. I mean, come on. So
All right.
tonight we have on a very special guest, a dear friend of ours. His name is G. Oliver King, actor, director,
Director, right?
um, friend, community member, and
Mm-hmm.
he is coming on tonight because Oliver has brought a iconic historical figure back to life in his own way. Frederick Douglass has been performing for a short period of time now, but he's done so many performances.
Mm-hmm.
We've only gotten to see one live, but
Right.
he does an amazing job. And since the quarantine, he's been doing some stuff in quarantine, which is great. So he's actually going to do a little bit for us tonight too, which I'm very excited about. So make sure you guys stick around and watch.
Okay.
G. Oliver King. I think we're going to bring him in right now.
Okay.
Should we?
That's sure.
On Tweed Talk, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little nervous on camera. I'm used to being live and all that stuff, but I guess I gotta get up with the new stuff here. I gotta learn, keep learning, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes. So,
Oh, and I gotta say that I adore both of you. I've known you for such a long time, and this is a real honor. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. We're honored to have you on. We chatted about you a little bit to our viewers before you came on.
Okay.
And told them a little bit about what you've been doing with Frederick Douglass. But before we get into that, I know you have a really interesting story about how you and Oliver sort of kind of worked together.
We didn't work together, but my kids, my gymnastic kids, worked with him on one of the production that he was doing. Um, Shakespeare in the Park, was that it?
I had got permission from the guys down in New York City to see if I could use that, and they said absolutely. Shakespeare in the Park.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, and he had a couple of my voice gymnasts on that production.
Sent a couple of
And plus, I know he literally worked right next to me.
yeah.
Over there at the gymnastics. But I know about him because everybody was talking about this acclaimed director, this director, and they kept saying Albert King, you know. And then I saw him around his production, a couple of times. And then when he directed you on
A Raisin in
The
the
Racing
Sun.
in the Sun.
Well, let's go back to the Shakespeare in the Park because that was very, very special to me.
Mm-hmm.
Two good friends, yourself and my good friend Sherma, who's been teaching dance in the area for many, many years. I had this brilliant idea when we did Midsummer Night's Dream. Titania and Oberon were feuding, of course, in the storyline over a child. But without getting into the whole story, Oberon had his crew and Titania had her crew, and they were all supposed to be fairies, according to Shakespeare. But I said, I'm not going to call any male child a fairy in this day and age. So I said, I had to come up with another name, Gremlins. And I said, who can be Gremlins? Where can I find? And I said, oh, Pedro Tweed's got a lot of gymnasts. They're all studying gymnastics, tumbling and swinging from ropes and all kinds of stuff. So I approached you and I threw the idea at you, and you were like, okay. Then I went to Shermer and I said, can I have a few of your young ladies to be, to be Titania's crew? That's how I named it. And they said, yes. So I wanted them to be completely opposite in their look, and I wanted to be very opposite in their movement. So I felt that Oberon's crew, being all boys, could be rough and tumble and mischievous and conniving and all kinds of stuff. So I had you guys swinging from ropes and doing flips and tumbles all over the place. And Titania's crew, the young dancers, being very lyrical and moving around. And it just worked out beautifully. And I was surprised at how many of the kids knew each other. They all were friends, and they all loved doing it. So that made it a big plus. It was a big plus there.
And can you believe that Keenan Garn is a father now?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my Oberon.
Keenan, yeah. He just had.
Yeah, Keenan. Yeah, I got the email. His mom was so excited,
Yeah.
and I stay in touch with Gloria on Facebook. And she told me about, the baby being. She had told me about the wedding too, whenever a couple of years back, and she, mentioned the baby and everything. I was like, oh my God, he's all grown up now. I call him my Oberon because he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Um, Everything. And the thing was, I don't believe he had done much acting. He wasn't very interested in acting, but I wanted to focus on his gymnastic skills more than anything. And I think that's what got him really involved with the role. Swinging from trees and all kinds of stuff. He was just amazing, amazing. So yeah, I thank you for that.
I'm gonna read a couple comments because we have some comments already.
Oh, okay.
Jeanette Margillo says, "Hi, Oliver. Remember me?"
Yes.
Peter Allen Chester says, "Outstanding as usual. Absolutely incredible. Renaissance man, Mr. King."
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the comments. Yeah.
So tell us how you got involved with portraying the great, the iconic Frederick Douglass.
Oh my. It goes back, when I keep thinking about it, it goes way back. Well, first of all, in high school, I went to high school in Brooklyn, Catholic high school, and I remember reading about it was just, let's see, Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. But in that same year, before King's assassination, when school started that semester, I approached one of my English teachers who was a really down to earth kind of guy. He wasn't a religious. He was a lay teacher, as they call them, and he was young and very very smart and very communicative. So I approached him about starting a Black Studies. We didn't call it Black History. We called it a Black Studies group. In that group, which started in my sophomore year, or no, my junior year, um, we learned about all the Black icons in the country. And for some reason, Frederick Douglass stood out because I was amazed at what he accomplished after or even during his time in slavery. It was just, it just stuck with me. So for years, I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to be a famous actor. I'd love to play Frederick Douglass, because it's so much more meaningful to play an actual historical figure than, a fictional character. But anyway, when I came to Sullivan County, there was an association for the study of African American life and history. And every year, my mom would go, before I came here, she would go and support them. It was called, the association would give out what they call the Frederick Douglass scholarships to students and acknowledgments to prominent community figures, people in the community that did things for the kids and for the community in general through church or through the schools. So when I first went, the first year I went with my mom, it's strange because they had this breakfast always on a Sunday, I believe the second Sunday in February, at 8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock in the morning.
In Woodburn.
Yes.
And the first time I went, I was like, seriously, why don't they make it a dinner? But I got there, and let me tell you, the food was slamming. I mean, they had somebody in that kitchen that was just throwing down. It was so good. All the speakers were very impressive. I didn't even realize, this is before I did Raisin in the Sun the first time I went. And oh my God, I was just so impressed at this group of people. So I approached one of the speakers and I said, this is called Frederick Douglass Breakfast. And I said, have you ever thought of reading, some of the words of Frederick Douglass? Oh, no, that would be a great idea. And so I said, well, next year, I definitely would like to do that. And so I noticed in the program that it had a theme for that year. And I asked her if they have a theme every year. So she says, yes, we do. The committee gets together and picks a theme for this year's dinner, breakfast. Wishful thinking. So I said, okay, we'll be in touch. And, they got in touch with, they got in touch with me the following year, and they told me this year's theme is, and I was very much aware that Frederick Douglass spoke on very many topics, on everything that had to deal with the African American community in his time. So I said, let me look. So I would search and I would find something that pertained to the theme of that year's breakfast and pick a passage. But they only gave me like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which is okay, which is strange because everything Frederick Douglass did lasted no less than an hour.
Absolutely.
I mean, every oration he ever gave. I mean, anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, he would be speaking on stage because in those days it was a brand new thing to see a black man speaking to hundreds of people and in front of a crowd of 100 people with something very important to say. And I loved his eloquence. I was a very good reader when I was coming up, and plus I was interested in acting, and I had read Shakespeare and all that stuff. So when I read his words, I was like, how could this happen? How did he get here? So I became more and more interested in not just a passage from one of his works, but how did he develop into the orator that he became? And I learned he read the Bible, he read Shakespeare, he read every newspaper he could get his hand on. He read all kinds of literature, and he really was self-taught. From the minute he started learning the ABCs, he knew prophetically that he would not live a life of slavery, and you know, he was self-taught. So I became more interested. Every year I did a passage for them at 5 or 10 minutes at the most. And then I said, I've got to take this further. Something about this has to be heard. And being a substitute teacher, I noticed that there may be a picture of Frederick Douglass on the wall along with Martin Luther King, but there wasn't much context in the history books. So that motivated me to keep going further with it and taking it further. And then I would say about 8 or 9 years ago, I decided to take it to the next level and begin to dress somewhat in period costume and find outlets to do complete speeches. Then I was approached by a former colleague that I worked with, Sam Wright, out in Walden, New York. And he called me up and he said that he had written a play about Frederick Douglass, and he had been trying to get in touch with me for several months. He called it Lion of Anacostia, and he was focusing on the relationship between Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony. And it had passages from Frederick Douglass's works. It was a fictional story about a newspaper reporter who had slammed him in the press. That's a true story.
Right. I remember that.
But he comes back years later to apologize and try to capture the true essence of Frederick Douglass. So that was a chance meeting, and it was like a short one-act play. Very well written. I said yes. And so then we started doing that. Probably around 2015, I decided something was brewing. I know it had to do with President Obama being elected in 2008. And I decided that this is right. It felt so right to do it. I said, maybe that's why it appeals to me, because the way he speaks is the way I think. I think on those levels too. And I too became quite well read. Whenever I asked my dad what a word meant, he says, look it up in the dictionary. So I would go and I began reading the dictionary like a novel. And being raised religiously, I was very aware of Bible passages and things. So I started connecting these things that he had written. He has many Bible references in his works, and they're very powerful because he always throws it in right at the right moment to make a point. And that kept appealing to me. So I said, this is easy in the fact that I don't have to worry about rehearsals or, a whole group of people getting together and trying to put something on stage, because I had done a lot of directing and a lot of acting around with the theater groups. And I said, I'm getting a little older now, and I'm a professional. I joined the Actors Union and all that. And I said, okay, I want to do something independent, see how it works. Yeah. And it worked. It seemed to start working.
Schedule. When you just have your own, it's a little bit easier.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to depend on anybody. You don't have to stay up late. Plus, the other thing that kind of helped motivate me was my mom was aging and she was at home. And I decided that going to a rehearsal, 7 o'clock and getting home at 11:30, midnight, not working. I got to be there for my mom. So I kind of pulled away from the community theater genre and started wanting to do things on my own, which made it much easier to do. Plus, I can charge and get paid.
Yeah.
Bonus. So
Yeah.
you have some stuff that you are going to actually perform for us tonight, right? You took some passages from Frederick Douglass.
Okay. Yeah. August was a very productive month for for my doing Frederick Douglass. I did two virtual performances, one for the Monticello Library and one for the Wurtsboro Library. And then I did a very outstanding presentation at the Newburgh, um, in Newburgh for a group called Frederick Douglass in Newburgh. And they were celebrating Frederick Douglass's visit to Newburgh back in 1870.
Okay.
And they contacted me and asked me if I could do the speech he did when he came there.
Amazing.
So a speech entitled Frederick Douglass Speaks in Newburgh, because he addressed the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which gave African American men the right to vote. And I couldn't find the speech anywhere. I found all of his other speeches, but not that one. I even contacted the Library of Congress down in Washington, D.C., and they said, we have no record of that. And I'm like, the man comes to Newburgh in New York State, one of the few cities he visited in New York, and there's no copy of his speech anywhere because he had to write everything down. There was no technology. And I said, that's how I got access. All of his other speeches were written down and then later transcribed. And I said, how could this be? And so it came to, he came to Newburgh and he probably spoke extemporaneously. And of course, nobody's recording and nobody there is speed writing, and he probably didn't write it down. He probably spoke off the top of his head, so to speak. And I said, darn, because I found two newspaper articles, one from the main newspaper in Newburgh and one from the New York Times, that referred to his visit. And they had quotes that he had said, but nobody had gotten the whole speech.
Oh, right.
So it was a little disappointing, but I found his speech on the ratification, his demand for the ratification for the right to vote for Black men. Women, Black or white, still weren't allowed to vote, but he knew he could push for the right to vote for African American men as American citizens. So I did that speech in Newburgh, but it's very timely because of the situation that's facing voters in this country coming up in November.
So very appropriate for this time.
Yeah, because also August 20th was the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote.
Right, that, yeah. I think
Black and white women got the right to vote with the 19th. But if you notice, Black men, the 15th Amendment, women, the 19th. So there was a lot of years in between that. Mm-hmm. So Douglass helped, since Susan B. Anthony helped him with his abolition efforts, he very much committed himself to helping women gain the right to vote. And that, again, is something that was unprecedented. Here's a former slave helping white women get the right to vote. I ask you, fellow citizens, is the proclamation of 1863 a mere mockery or delusion? After all, what is freedom? The idea I present today and the phraseology in which I clothe it is the old abolition phraseology. I am for the immediate, unconditional, and universal enfranchisement of the Black man in every state in this nation. Without this, his liberty is a mockery. Without this, you might as well retain the old name of slavery for his condition. For in fact, if he is not a slave of the individual master, he is the slave of a society which holds his liberty a privilege and not a right. Thus, he is at the mercy of the mob and has no way of protecting himself. Our streets are in mourning. Tears are falling at every fireside. The blood of the North has been shed, and under the chastisement of war, we have almost lost sight of the all-important questions of suffrage. If we fail to do it now, we may not for centuries to come see the same disposition that exists at this moment. I say now is the time to press this right. Give the Negro the elective franchise, and you give him at once a powerful motive for all noble exertion, and make him a man amongst men. A character is demanded of him. And here, as elsewhere, demand favors supply. Enfranchisement for them, and they become self-respecting and country-loving citizens. Disfranchise them, and the mark of Cain is set upon them, and less mercifully than upon the first murderer. If the doctrine that taxation should go hand in hand with representation, if that doctrine can be appealed to in behalf of recent traitors and rebels, may it not properly be asserted in behalf of a people who have ever been loyal and faithful to the government? What then is the work before Congress? It is to save the people of the South from themselves and the nation from detriment on their account. Congress must supplant the evident sectional tendencies of the South by national dispositions and tendencies. It must cause national ideas and objects to take the lead. Statesmen of America, beware what you do. The plowshare of rebellion has gone through the land, beam deep. The soil is in readiness, and the seed time has come. Nations, not less than individuals, reap what they sow. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, has slowly but successfully been banished from the South, has dictated its own code of honor and manners to the nation, brandished the bludgeon and the Bowie knife over congressional debate, sapped the foundation of loyalty, dried up the springs of patriotism, blotted out the testimonies of the fathers against oppression, padlocked the pulpits, expelled liberty from its literature, invented nonsensical theories about master races and slave races of men, and in due season produced a rebellion, foul and bloody. Statesmen of America, beware what you do. The destiny of unborn and unnumbered generations is in your hands. Will you repeat the mistake of your fathers who sinned ignorantly? Or will you profit by the blood-bought wisdom all around you and forever expel every vestige of the old abomination from our national borders? As you members of the 39th Congress will decide, Will the country be peaceful, united, and happy, or troubled, divided, and miserable?
Wow. Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Centuries have gone by and the same fight is going on, which is really, I don't want to say depressing, but it's just overwhelming that this has to continue like this. What is the problem?
What were you going to say about the
I was going to say, last time I saw you perform this, well, it was the only time I saw you perform. And some people in the audience got shocked up.
Oh yeah, now that the one I think you saw was the 4th of July oration out in Narrowsburg.
Harrisburg, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one, that's one of his 4-hour speeches that I had to kind of shrink down. But it's easy because he has so much information in his speeches, history. You know, he includes history in everything he does, and he's so accurate. And the interesting thing about it, it never seems like opinion. He really nails down the facts and he throws them in their face. So the one you saw on the 4th of July, that's a very, very powerful speech, and that's been considered his most famous speech. Mm-hmm. What to the slave is the 4th of July.
I'm gonna read a couple of comments here. There's quite a few people that were on watching. A gentleman named Andrew Matthews says great actor.
Oh, thank you, Andrew
Matthews.
Andrew Matthews. That's Rachel Sellers says, "Wow, Oliver King." And Jeanette, she says again, she's like, "Wow, could apply to today," which we know that it can. And live performances coming up locally that we can post about and share about. I'm already gonna post about your stuff you have on YouTube because I know the one that streamed through the library page. I actually watched that one. That was towards the beginning of the shutdown. So what do you have?
Okay. Both libraries, Wordsboro and Monticello, put it available on YouTube.
Perfect.
But the one in Newburgh, I'm still trying to get them to do that. I don't know. I can probably do it myself, but I've got to figure out how, because they did send me the entire they recorded the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly enough, I don't have anything nailed down yet for the near future, but the most exciting thing happened the day before yesterday. I had been trying to, like when I said I had gotten in touch with the Library of Congress, trying to find speeches from Frederick Douglass, and they had everything but the one I was looking for, and I have access to all the other stuff. But I also contacted a group called the FDFI, F as in Frederick Douglass Family Initiative. And I'm, checking them out, Googling them, comes to find out that Frederick Douglass's great, great, great grandchildren are keeping his memory alive. I didn't know about this until maybe since COVID, when I could sit and just play around with the computer and look. I've been trying to reach out to them for the past couple of months, I would say 3 or 4 months, and not getting anything back. So then I sent them the videos from the Newburgh performance, because I may have forgot to mention that Newburgh has named August 11th Frederick Douglass Day in Newburgh, because that's the date he visited Newburgh in 1870. This was the 50th anniversary, 150th year anniversary of his visit to Newburgh. So when the Frederick Douglass Family Initiative, which is a nationwide huge organization, which I just learned about, saw the footage from Newburgh, they were quite impressed. And they said, "Oh, we've been aware of the Frederick Douglass and Newburgh organization. Here's our information. We're going to talk." Because also last week or week before last, within the last month, Rochester has decided to rename their airport the Frederick Douglass Airport.
Wow.
So somehow in the past couple of years, so many things have been lining up, and I feel good about that because I started with Frederick years ago, and it's coming to fruition. All of that is very timely in my mind because as Frederick Douglass was so prophetic, I feel that I've connected with him in a way spiritually for the reasons I gave before. You know, we're born our birthdays are 2 weeks apart. He doesn't actually know what day he was born. He only knows the year. But his mother used to call him her Valentine baby or her little Valentine. So as he became aware of what Valentine was, you know, in his maybe 7 or 8 years old, he decided, since all the white kids knew when their birthday was, he wanted to have his birthday. So he decided that his birthday was February 14th. He did know the year because when one of his first masters pushed him in front of someone to sell him, they inquired as to when he was born and how old he was. And the master said, he was born sometime after the first of the year. Valentine's Day is not that, you know, it's only 6 weeks since, you know, New Year's. And his mother's called him Little Valentine. So he decided his birthday was February 14th.
Gotcha.
So that's very powerful if you think about it, you know, because not only is Valentine's Day was being celebrated, I looked it up. When was the actual Valentine's Day celebrated? And when did the heart actually come in to represent the human heart? Because it's not really, oops, everything's backwards on screen. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to do.
Trying to make a heart, yes.
I looked it up and said, were they celebrating Valentine's Day in the year 1818? And they were. It goes all the way back to the 16th century. But the heart shape was developed sometime in the 19th century, because we all know the heart is not actually shaped the way, you know, the Valentine is. So that heart shape is actually the Valentine. It's not the heart. I mean, you know, technically speaking. But that's neither here nor there. The fact that he was born on February 14th is very significant because it's full of love. And you know, he maybe, I think he says in his autobiography he saw his mother maybe 5 or 6 times in his entire life, but he loved her very dearly because she would walk 12 miles after doing a day's work to go to the farm where he was as a slave. They were in 2 separate areas, but she was so attached to this baby that she would go and sneak into his area where he slept on the floor in one of, you know, probably in some shack, and curl him up in her arms, sleep with him until the sun came up, and then walk 12 miles back to her plantation and start a day's work. She did this every day. Now, the women had some leeway with their masters because the masters were, this is not a comical comment, but they became baby factories for the masters. The masters of the plantation abused them, raped them, you know, bore children with them, and then treated their own children as slaves. But somehow she had made this connection with Frederick much more deeply than any of her other children. And he sensed that, he knew that. So all the fact that he chose Valentine's Day and the day of love and everything to be his birthday makes a lot of sense because he had that type of prophetic nature. And his mother also, by the way, could read and write and cipher, as they call it. She could add, and she did a lot of that. Besides bearing children, she did a lot of bookkeeping for her owners. And that also encouraged Frederick to learn how to read and write, because they said that we can teach the women because they're no threat. But if you teach a male slave, he becomes restless and rebellious, and They called it illegal to teach a male slave how to read and write. They made it a law that they couldn't learn to read and write. I don't know if you knew that or if people know that. It was against the law. And anyone caught doing it could be put in jail.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
but Frederick learned, he learned.
we thank you so much for coming on and giving us so much information about Frederick Douglass. And, we hope that you will keep us abreast onto what you have coming up because we'll be glad to share it on the page.
Okay,
Um,
absolutely.
we'll make sure that we post your YouTube link so people can enjoy that now.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said we'll make sure we post the YouTube link so people can enjoy that now. Um, Thank you for coming on. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you so much for being and becoming Frederick Douglass. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to close now. We want to thank you for coming to Twist Talk. We hope to have you again when we have another project. We definitely should. If we do this long enough, we got to do it in February.
Okay, for definitely in February. And I will keep you informed as to when I do have a good feeling that they're going to invite me to speak at the dedication of the new airport in Rochester, which is phenomenal. I just can't, you have a good feeling about something. Both of these organizations, Frederick Douglass in Newburgh and the Frederick Douglass Family Initiative, his great grandchildren read passages from his speech, but nobody does what I do, which I think makes it very interesting. Nobody does his whole speech with the power,
Make sure we get tickets.
the power and the delivery that he did it. And I think that's what's important. His words, anybody can read the words, but when you hear him speak, it makes a huge difference. Because anybody can read the I Have a Dream speech, but when you see and hear Martin Luther King do it, wow, it's a whole different, a whole different thing. That's why I love dedicating myself to Frederick Douglass, because his work is just, and it's so timely. I mean, it's about Black people fighting for their life, and we're still doing it. We're still doing it. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I will keep you informed.
Thank you so much, Oliver. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 10 times 10.
Okay.
So we're going to
Uh,
go and then we're going to keep talking about it.
oh, okay. You're talking behind my back, huh? Okay.
All good
Okay. Okay. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Richard Ross. You guys know Richard.
stuff. Of
Yes.
course.
Absolutely. I don't know if you read his passage on Facebook. He's been going through some, bashing, I guess is the best way to put it. But the man is just phenomenal. His power of speech is also very impressive. I was thinking, I'd like to do one of his passages, because if you don't know what I'm talking about, just check his page on Facebook and see what he wrote today.
Okay. Well,
It,
I know
it,
him. He's somewhat one of my juniors.
oh yeah, I know. His son was in your class and also was in my play. So, not till I did Romeo and Juliet. I don't think Jonathan was in Midsummer. He wasn't in Midsummer, but Keenan played Oberon in Midsummer and Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. Completely different characters, and he did an amazing job. But anyway, Richard has been very profound in what he's been saying the past few days, and I just wanted to thank him for his dedication to what is being called the Black Lives Matter movement. And he understands it thoroughly, and he's very supportive, not just because it's called the Black Lives Matter, but because he knows what society is about and what's going on in this country. And I think, he's a brilliant person. So,
Hi, Richard.
oh, he's here.
No, I'm just saying hi.
Oh,
Yeah.
So hopefully
okay.
playback will be it. Well, Oliver, thank you so much for joining us
Again, thank you.
on Tweed Talk. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bless you both.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Oliver. Hey guys. So we hope you guys enjoyed that live performance by Oliver King of a few passages from the iconic Frederick Douglass. And as I mentioned before, we'll be sure to post the link. He did one he's done 3 over the quarantine. Talk about, just sitting at home and doing nothing. He's been pretty busy. So there will be some content for you guys to watch if you want to watch longer than the 2-3 minutes that he was able to perform here live for you guys.
And what I like also is that wasn't just a performance, but also a history lesson. Because when I saw him last time, people were asking questions, and I was really amazed at how much he knew about the character. So it wasn't just like he said, just reading.
Right.
It was like he got to know the character.
He embodied the character.
He really does it even beyond his speeches. And that's when you really study your character, and then you become that character. You become. So he's beginning to look like me, as a matter of fact. So that's good. And coming up on Tweed, and if you notice, most of the time we bring in guests that we know. We haven't brought, except for one person we didn't know, or we have some connection. Either you've done a play, or you appear, or we know it somehow. We met it somehow. And the next thing that's coming up is a fashion designer which she got model for. And we're really excited about that. His name is Christopher Michael Forbes. And he will be on with us on Friday. I'm looking forward to that because I'm not going to throw everything out, but we probably get to see some of his design. I'm going to be posting the promo later on.
The promo is what keeps interest, right? And I love that.
Oh, really?
And when I was talking to Oliver earlier, he loved the promo because it sort of puts work that he's done in, sort of in I don't know the word that I'm looking for. You guys know what I'm talking about. But we sort of put all those things together. I'm like, listen, that's all Pedro. All Pedro. So
I enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing that. So with that, we're going to say good night.
I'm going to read one last comment from Pamela Fantucci. She said, "Thanks for sharing Oliver with us on Facebook. He's so amazing. I've learned so much from him." So has 3 O's, then you might have to check.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for joining us live on Tweed Talk. We will see you Friday right here at 8 p.m. Bye.
No harmony today?
You go ahead.
No, that's okay. We'll see you tomorrow.
No, we will see them
Friday. That's right. I thought it was Monday today.
Oh my gosh, we're going back.